What's up, everybody? Welcome to the latest edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you as I love to do at the very least every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday over the digital airwaves of YouTube and iHeartRadio. I mean, listen, the subscribers are growing in the audio stratosphere as well. And right here on YouTube, I've eclipsed 704,000 subscribers. Just keep on growing and growing and growing every single day. Thank you for the love and support. Keep bringing it. And you know I'm going to keep accepting it and appreciating it. Thank you so much. By the way, if you want to continue to be or want to become a member of the Stephen A. Smith Show family, just click that bell in the right-hand corner and boom, you too will be the latest member. And while you're doing that, make sure to get a copy of my New York Times best-selling book, Straight Shooter, a memoir of second chances and first takes, now in paperback. Just go to straightshooterbook.com. That's straightshooterbook.com to get a copy of my book, my best-selling book, in paperback. Let me get started right now with the NBA Finals because I expect them to end tonight. Yes, the hell with it. I was wrong. I had Dallas winning this series in 6 games. They ain't going to even win a damn game. I didn't see that coming. Not the way Kyrie and Luka were playing, along with P.J. Washington and those boys coming into the conference finals. But nevertheless, that is the situation right now. The Boston Celtics have a commanding 3-0 lead in this series heading into tonight's Game 4. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum have been steady leaders for the Celtics, while Kyrie Irving struggled out of the gate for the first 2 games, although he exploded for 35 in Game 3. Luka Doncic has been another story as well, and that's a story that continues to be a defensive liability for the Dallas Mavericks. Here's all you need to know. When it comes to Luka Doncic, okay, when you talk about getting blown by on the defensive side of the ball, defending an opponent, nobody has been blown by more. According to statistical data, nobody has been blown by more than Luka Doncic in the last 10 years. That's how bad it is. That's how bad his defense has been, to the point where the Boston Celtics felt comfortable peeling Sam Hauser off the bench and throwing him in the lineup, and he just drained three three-pointers. 2 of them, over Luka Doncic, who was nowhere in the vicinity, had fell asleep before trying to lunge out at the last minute, but was nowhere to be found. When you look at some of these stats that's going here, let's just get this out of the way going into Game 4 tonight. I'm taping this show, by the way, just a few hours before Game 4, so obviously it's before we decide this outcome is decided. I expect the Celtics to win, but Dallas could potentially surprise you. We'll talk about that in a second. The Celtics are now 1 win shy of their league-best 18th NBA championship. Both them and the Lakers are tied at 17 for this particular moment. The championship, assuming the Boston Celtics win Game 4 on Friday night, would snap their second longest title drought in franchise history, because it's been 16 years since they last cut down the Nets in 2008. Remember, when 2008, that was a 22-year drought dating back to 1986 before they finally beat Kobe Bryant, Pau Gasol, and those boys in 2008, okay? Boston has won a franchise postseason record, 10 games, okay? This is what I'm talking about here. When you look at it, the Celtics can match the longest win streak by any team in the NBA, NHL, or MLB history to end a postseason. The 1992 Pittsburgh Penguins won their last 11 games in winning the Stanley Cup. The Celtics have won 10 straight. So that's what we've got to look at right now. That's just the way it is. They're 13-0 this postseason in games they've led by double digits, okay? They're 7-0 on the road in the postseason, 21-7 away from TD Garden over the last 3 postseasons, all right? And if they win Game 4 tonight in Dallas, they'll join the 2001 Lakers as the only NBA champions to finish the postseason with perfect road records. Both teams would have gone 8-0. This is the number that really jumps out at me. It's not a 3-0 lead in the best-of-7 series. That's 156-0 all time, including 14-0 in the finals, okay? It's not that. Here's the stat that jumped out at me. The Celtics have averaged 66 more passes and 11 more assists per game than the Mavericks in these NBA Finals. 66 more passes and 11 more assists per game. You know what that means, right? That means Luka is ball hogging. There's no other way around it. There's no other way around it. He's ball hogging. He's not moving the basketball. He's not getting others involved. When you see that flagrant of a discrepancy, that's a problem, because you're not beating the Boston Celtics just holding on to the ball hogging and thinking that you're just going to score on them. Al Horford 6'11", 6'10", 6'11". Jason Tatum 6'9". Jaylen Brown 6'7". Drew Holiday and Derek White are at least 6'5". They got size at every single damn position. You're not getting away with that if you're Luka Doncic or anybody. That's a big reason why they're down 0-3. Now, Kyrie could have done some things in the first two games when he was a no-show, averaging 11 points less than his points per game average during the regular season. Okay, that he could have been better, but he showed up in game 3 and dropped 35. Hit 4 or 6 3-pointers after going 0 for 8 in the first two games from three-point range. But Luka held on to the ball. Luka wasn't getting him the ball. That's my biggest thing. So many people talked about Luka complaining to the refs, him being such a flagrant defensive liability. Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. But to me, the biggest crime that Luka Doncic committed is that you knew the other night was not your night. You knew it was a relatively off night. You shot 40% from the field. You took 27 shots to make 27 points. That's not a Luka Doncic type of performance. But Kyrie was in his bag. And when you see your teammate is in his bag, when you see him get to the hole with regularity, when you see him finishing at the basket, when you see the three-point shot flowing, and you know Kristaps Porzingis is out for the game because he was injured, how in God's name do you not get the ball to Kyrie Irving? Give it to him. Let him dictate the flow. Not only was Luka not on his game in terms of his efficiency, he was slowing everything down. And going into game 4 on Friday night, the belief is that Luka's going to make up for it offensively. But even if he makes up for it offensively, if it's courtesy of him ball hogging and not getting the ball to others, turning a PJ Washington, turning a Derrick Jones, turning a Kyrie Irving into spectators, that's a problem. And then we got to get into Jason Kidd and how Jason Kidd and the coaching staff evidently have not gotten in the head of Luka Doncic efficiently enough to get him to stop bitching, whining, and moaning to the referees to the point where you sitting on the floor and putting your defense in a hole where they're playing 4-on-5 basketball defensively because you ain't back on defense. And even when you get back on defense, you just standing around complaining and you ain't defending nobody. And God bless Jason Kidd. I'm sitting there like me and so many others played Tim Hardaway Jr. Tim Hardaway played 19 minutes, didn't score a point. Ladies and gentlemen, he was so ineffective, so inefficient, he didn't even commit a foul. The only place he had numbers other than 0 was in rebounds with 3. Outside of that, he did absolutely positively nothing. This is Tim Hardaway Jr., who can get streaky, who's capable of dropping 25 or 30 in a nanosecond because of his shooting prowess. It is completely evaporated. He's nowhere to be found. An absolute no-show. I would have paid that kid Hardy. Exum, somebody. I would have thrown all of them in there. Tim Hardaway doesn't have anything left, it appears. At least for this series, which is sad to watch because I root for the brother. But nevertheless, it's a situation where I've lost all faith in the Dallas Mavericks because it wasn't just that they lost the game. It was that they were up 20. They were down 21. Without Kristaps Porzingis on the court, they were down 21 points. And I just said to myself, damn, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum can do what they want to do. And by the way, speaking of Jaylen Brown, let me say this. If he continues to play the way that he's been playing, he's going to win NBA Finals MVP. He will have deserved it. He'd certainly get my vote. And it forces us to revisit something that I brought up because it's very important that I bring this up, so I'm going to bring this up again. You know, when I made noise and I made news over a week ago when I talked about how somebody had texted me, and a couple of people had done it actually, and saying that he's not very well liked. People were in an uproar over that. Even the great Isaiah Thomas spoke up on his behalf, talking about he was being slandered, by whoever said that to me. Well, listen, first of all, that's assuming most people believe it. To know Jaylen Brown is to know that the brother is a star in this league and a man of high character whose reputation is unblemished in terms of him not getting into any trouble or being a distraction or a cancer to this team or anything like that. But can we grow up? Because I'm getting ready to get into Caitlin Clark in a minute, pretty much over this same subject. So why not lead into it by talking about Jaylen Brown? Jaylen Brown is a star in this league. Last 7 games since the beginning of the Eastern Conference Finals, by the way, the brother's averaging 27.3 points on 53% shooting from the field. He hit a game-time shot to send a game into overtime that saved them from an outright loss to Indiana. The brother shows up. You know, from opening tap of this NBA Finals series, he's been defending Luka Doncic. He plays on both ends of the court. He's a finisher and what have you. You know what else he is? He's an activist at heart. He's a conscientious observer. From my understanding, he's also a Muslim. Why are all of these subjects relevant? Because the brother doesn't have any endorsement deals that I can think of. Why is that? Now, don't get me wrong. I haven't had in-depth research on this subject about Jaylen Brown and his endorsement. Just from what I've heard, he might have a deal with Pepsi and Beats by Dre. I'm not sure about that, but maybe he does. I haven't seen it. I'm just saying. It's worth noting. I want to make sure everybody understands. I support Jaylen Brown. I'm not speaking against him. I'm speaking against those who have spoken against him, privately or otherwise, or who are not supporting him. Jason Tatum deserves all the love and all the shine he gets. He's the star of the team. But so is Jaylen Brown. But Jason Tatum, quiet assassin, goes out there, balls, inside and out, 6'9", with a handle, with a J, with a three-point shot, can finish at the basket, can get to the hole, can score in the open court. He also got his little son Deuce out there with him all the time. Got sneaker deals, got more commercials than anybody outside of Shaq or Snoop Dogg or Barkley or somebody. I mean, I'm just thinking about it. Right now, I think Jason Tatum has damn near as many commercials as LeBron James. This is Jason Tatum we're talking about here. I understand that he wears a Boston Celtics uniform, the most storied franchise in basketball annals, particularly assuming they win the title Friday night in Game 4. Where the hell has Jaylen Brown been playing? Hasn't he been wearing the same uniform? Hasn't he been doing his thing? Now, I know nobody's trying to get into the black-white thing or anything like that because both of the brothers are black. We're not trying to say that. And certainly there's a plethora of marquee athletes who happen to be black that have been marketed. Jaylen Brown isn't one of them. Here's the reason why. Because when you're a conscientious observer, when you're an activist at heart, when you've been at the front lines willing to tackle sensitive issues and content, willing to put your face and your name in the forefront, when you speak about the desolate and disenfranchised and how much they need our assistance, when you have a press conference while signing that $300+ million contract you agreed to last summer, you make sure to do it in a venue to highlight the problems that exist in our communities and how all of us need to contribute to doing something about it. What we're not saying is that leads to being unliked, because a lot of people just want to sit back and make their money and be quiet, and they don't want anybody to take a stance, and they don't want anybody to be politically active, and they don't want anybody to sit up there and be willing to ruffle feathers. Jaylen Brown is one of those people. Maybe that's why he doesn't have the kind of marketing deals that his teammate Jason Tatum has. That's what I'm saying. And what I'm saying is that is grossly unfair to him. And if he wins the NBA Finals MVP, what y'all gonna say then? What y'all gonna say then? Those are the kind of things that I'm talking about. And it shouldn't be just a sneaker deal. From my understanding, he doesn't have that right now. But how many teams with dynamic duos? Klay Thompson and Steph Curry, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, Jokic, and Jamal Murray. Dynamic duos all over the place. Who don't have a sneaker deal? Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown. What's up with that? He deserves it. If something has happened that I missed, then I apologize. But from my research and my understanding, he doesn't have these things. I haven't seen him on any commercials. Why not? Why not? He didn't even make the All-NBA team. He got my vote. I voted for him. How come he didn't make the All-NBA team? There's 15 players in the NBA better than Jaylen Brown? You sure about that? You sure about that? Boston Celtics have been in 6 conference finals since he arrived, and in NBA finals. This is second NBA finals. He's about to be a champion. All season long, they've had the best record in basketball. Where's his deal? So if we're going to be real about it, let's be real about it. Let's not stop being children and focusing on, oh, well, I don't like Stephen A., so I'm going to challenge what he said just because I don't like him. No, damn it, challenge what I'm saying. What did I say? Jaylen Brown deserves acclaim. He deserves to be hyped. He deserves to be marketed. And don't think it's an accident that I brought up religion. The other day, they asked Joe Mazzulla, the head coach of the Boston Celtics, How you feel about being you and Jason Kidd, black coaches, minority coaches, doing what they're doing, blah, blah, blah. He said, has anybody asked how many of them were Christians? Whole room got quiet because everybody's scared to touch religion. Everybody's scared to touch religion. We know that there's religious bias in this country. We know this. And there ain't a person alive that can deny that. And forgive me if I'm just wondering if indeed my info is correct, and a guy like Jaylen Brown, who is a Muslim, if that doesn't play a role in the lack of marketability. Especially in this day and age with what's going on throughout the world. And we ain't going to get into that. But you know what I'm saying. One must ask these questions. So I just asked. Rhetorically, albeit. Let me move on to the next subject, because that involves Caitlin Clark. Obviously, before I do that, let me give major props to Sabrina Ionescu for the New York Liberty with what she's been doing. She's been doing big things, and major props to her, but I'll revisit that in a second in terms of our WNBA headlines. But the first order of business is going to be Caitlin Clark, because she was asked this week by a reporter how she felt about her name being weaponized for racism and misogyny in the league, along with other things. Her response was as follows, quote, I don't see it. Basketball is my job. Everything on the outside, I can't control that. So I'm not going to spend time thinking about that. People can talk about what they want to talk about, create conversations about whatever it is. But I think for myself, I'm just here to play basketball. I'm here to have fun. I'm trying to help our team win. Now, Caitlin Clark's comments caught the attention of Connecticut Suns player Dejanay Carrington, who took exception to what Clark had to say and responded on X, formerly known as Twitter, with this quote, dog, how one cannot be bothered by their name being used to justify racism, bigotry, misogyny, xenophobia, homophobia, and the intersectionalities of them all is nuts. We all see the shit. We all have a platform. We all have a voice. And they all hold weight. Silence is a luxury. Following Carrington's post, Clark was asked again about her feelings on misogyny and racism circling the WNBA. This time, the 22-year-old delivered a strong statement on people using her name with hateful motives and messages that escalated after she failed to make the U.S. Olympic team. Here's what she said, quote, everybody in our world deserves the same amount of respect. The women in our league deserve the same amount of respect. People should not be using my name to push those agendas. It's disappointing. It's not acceptable. Just treating every single woman in this league with the same amount of respect is just a basic human thing that everyone should do. End quote. From Caitlin Clark. First of all, I love the fact that Caitlin Clark came back and commented on it. Dejanay Carrington was very piercing in her rebuke of what Caitlin Clark had to say. But for those that are willing to get on Carrington, I will come to Carrington's defense simply in this regard. People got on Michael Jordan because Michael Jordan gave the impression that he just cared about playing basketball at one time and making money. And everybody was saying he needs to be more active, he needs to speak up, et cetera, et cetera. Back in the day, that was a different time, but nevertheless, he was held accountable. And most people who are silent when clear activism is needed, if not downright required, you're going to get called on it, particularly in this day and age where everybody has a voice. And what Carrington was saying is that it wasn't on, she was not implying that it was on Caitlin Clark to speak up alone. What she specifically said is that all of us have a voice and all of us have an obligation to use that voice. In other words, none of us should be silent. Silence is a luxury, but one none of us should have. That's what Carrington was saying, in my opinion. And I don't disagree with her, as long as you're somewhat knowledgeable about what you're talking about. In the case of Caitlin Clark, let's just call it what it is. We're living in a world right now where there is resentment. There is some degree of hostility. When I brought up jealousy, envy, resentfulness, I had to elaborate extensively on exactly what I meant. Because what I was trying to say to people is that any one of those emotions add the word justified before it because it's justified. Because a legitimate argument can be made that as great as Caitlin Clark was in college and as great as I know she will be in the WNBA, that is separate and apart from the issue surrounding her apparent marketability. Record ratings for the WNBA draft, 2.446 million. Record ratings for the opening night doubleheader for the WNBA. Record ratings over the course of this season, directly attributed to Caitlin Clark, not solely, but primarily. And the reality is that there have been players who have come along who were not white, but looked even better and didn't get that kind of shine. So because of that, Caitlin Clark, albeit totally unfair to her, essentially is the poster child right now. Not just to face the golden goose of the WNBA, not just somebody who's elevating to becoming the face of the WNBA at the expense of somebody like A'ja Wilson, who clearly should be the face of the NBA because she's that lady. She's that one, that two-time champion that she is. But in spite of all of that, or on top of all of that, what we're talking about when we talk about Caitlin Clark is she is a shining example of what most folks in America outside of the white community has lamented about America since this nation's inception. If you're white, it's bright, it's light, it's great, everything's good. We want that more than we want anything else. And no matter what trials and tribulations people of African American descent and beyond have endured, you don't necessarily get the shine you get when you are white. And people thought we had moved past that to some degree, or we had taken so many steps in a proper direction, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then it's a reminder that we still have a long way to go. And what I said on First Take earlier today, my day job on ESPN, 10 a.m. to noon, Eastern Standard Time every weekday morning, what I said, I will never apologize for because it's necessary to understand. What do you think is interpreted when Donald Trump would say, "Make America great again"? How many people have you heard saying what that meant was make America white again? That's what people are thinking. Not everybody, but a lot of people. A lot of people love it. A lot of people hate it. Which is why even though Biden got 81 million votes for the last election, Donald Trump still had over 74 million. Because you got a lot of people that flow with that thinking. That's the nation that we're living in. She talked about intersectionalities and homophobia and all of this. All of those things are very, very real, what Carrington brought up. Why would that have anything to do with Caitlin Clark? Because whiteness glosses over it all. The fact that she can ball, that she's incredibly marketable, and she's white, has everybody saying that's a product we want to support. And so we're going to throw our support behind the WNBA in ways we never imagined we would. The other day, right here on this show, I told y'all in the 28-year history of the WNBA, only 9 players have had on-court earnings of more than $1 million. The average NBA salary is $10 million. The NBA is about to ink a new TV deal that's going to bring in tens of billions. WNBA been struggling to scratch $200 million in collective overall revenue. Caitlin Clark's about to help eclipse all of that. So no matter how far we've advanced, no matter how far we've come, even when we just had a black president a decade ago, even when we had a woman as the Democratic nominee for the presidency of the United States in the year 2016, even as we sit here today, and one of the topics trending is that Michelle Obama would be the obvious candidate for the presidency in the event that Joe Biden backed out, if that's what she wanted to do. Even with all of these advancements, per se, in our society, Caitlin Clark is a reminder, as great as she is, through no fault of her own, that America is still more receptive to marketing white folks more so than anybody else. It's what they've looked for and it's what they've prayed for. And they're getting it. That's the reality. So Carrington, no, I don't think she should have called out Caitlin Clark. But I think that her message, her tweet was saying, don't sit here and be quiet if you down for the cause. If you with us, you with us. Because it's always bigger than just one person. And that's what she was challenging Caitlin Clark to do. She's a rookie. A lot of pressure on her. Don't particularly like it. But I've seen black players in their early 20s have their pressure placed on them. In football and basketball. If that's what it is, that's what it is. Let me move on to this next subject before I go to break because I'm staying in the WNBA. I already brought it up. New York Liberty clinched home court advantage in the WNBA Commissioner's Cup final, which will be played on June 25th. The Liberty are led by my personal WNBA player of the week, by the way, Sabrina Ionescu. The three-point sharpshooter led the team with 24 points, handing the Connecticut Sun their first loss of the season and was named to her first USA Olympic basketball team. Ionescu is averaging nearly 18 points, 4.4 rebounds, 5.5 assists. Her signature basketball shoe, the Sabrina 1s, were launched last September, by the way, and the Sabrina 2s are expected to hit store shelves June 28. She plays for New York. I love her already. But what I also love is how she showed up NBA All-Star Weekend. And even though she lost to Steph Curry, the greatest shooter God has ever created, her score tied or eclipsed all the other dudes. Her score of 26 was just as high as Damian Lillard's, and it eclipsed all the others outside of Steph Curry. She's special. Ionescu's special. When I think about Caitlin Clark and what she could be, I think about Ionescu and what she already is, to some degree. Just saying. Just saying. Way to handle your business, girl. Major, major props. No doubt about that. Coming up next, right here on the Stephen A. Smith Show, Gervonta Tank Davis defends his WBA lightweight world title against Frank Martin Saturday night in Las Vegas. We'll preview that fight. And I'll talk about a couple of other things in a minute. Don't go away. It's the Stephen A. Smith Show over iHeartRadio and YouTube. Back with more in a minute. Now, I just want to take a moment to make sure everyone knows my favorite time of the year is happening right now, y'all. The NBA Finals. It's in full swing. And how do I make them even more exciting than they already are? I play PrizePicks, of course, so I can cash in on all the big game action. You see, PrizePicks is a daily fantasy sports app where you can select two or more of your favorite players and then choose more or less on their projected stats for the game. But PrizePicks is not just basketball. No. It has choices for every sports fanatic. You can pick players from the WNBA, the NHL, tennis, or even golf, all in the same entry, okay? I make my picks and submit early, all in less than just 60 seconds, all right? And get this, PrizePicks will match your first deposit of up to $100. All right, I'm going to say that again. PrizePicks will match your first deposit of up to $100. That's right. So go to prizepicks.com and use the code SAS, that's my initials, of course, for a first deposit match of up to $100. That's code SAS when you go to prizepicks.com. Pick more, pick less. Guess what, y'all? It's really, really, really that easy. Welcome back to the Stephen A. Smith Show right here over the digital airwaves of YouTube and, of course, iHeartRadio. Let's not forget that. It's fight night in Vegas tomorrow night, featuring the main event when Gervonta Tank Davis defends his WBA lightweight world title against Frank Martin. The fight, which takes place at the MGM Grand tomorrow night, is the first fight for Davis in more than a year. As for Martin, he's an undefeated southpaw with, dare I say, less experienced look. I'm worried about Frank Martin because I know the brother can fight, but in the same breath, Tank Davis ain't the kind of dude you want to stand in front of. Okay? He really, really, really is not that dude. He's the kind of dude you want to get out of the way. He got power in both hands. They basically call him the lightweight version of Iron Mike Tyson. Okay? He's not somebody that you want to stand in front of. Now, for me, here's the most compelling story, though. And I'm not rooting against Frank Martin. Seems like a really good guy, got good boxing skills, don't really know about his power. But I got mad respect for him. I've heard enough about this WBC lightweight champion that is Shakur Stevenson. Okay? I mean, at some point in time, when's somebody going to fight him? Is Gervonta Davis going to fight him? Frank Martin and fight him? Who's going to fight him? That's what I'm interested in seeing. I'm just looking at some of these guys. I mean, in the WBA rankings, boxing is such a mess. In the WBA rankings, Frank Martin is ranked number 2, the number 2 contender behind Zepeda, who's 30-0. Okay? In the WBC rankings, I'm looking at Frank Martin. He's not even ranked in the top 10. Now, how does that make sense? So he's ranked in the top 2, according to the WBA. He's not even ranked in the top 10, okay, according to the WBC. And with the IBF, because that champion is Lomachenko, Frank Martin is ranked number 5. That's politics. How the hell can you not be ranked in the top 10 in the WBC when you ranked in the IBF and the WBA top 5 or top 2? What the hell is that? See, this is the problem with boxing. It really, really is. And so I'm just looking at some of these fights right now. If you're Gervonta Davis, okay, who do I want to see you go up against? I wouldn't mind seeing Gervonta Davis go up against Lomachenko. That wouldn't bother me. Lomachenko's a bad brother. He picked apart Kambosos the other week, a couple months ago. Picked him apart, beat him like he stole something. Okay? So I wouldn't mind seeing that fight. I wouldn't mind seeing Gervonta Davis versus Shakur Stevenson. I wouldn't mind seeing that at all. To me, Gervonta Davis is box office. Tank Davis is box office. Those are the 2 fights worth having at the lightweight division, up at 140, assuming he moves up. To see him fight somebody like Teofimo Lopez is something that I would love to see. If Ryan Garcia could get his act together and stop getting himself in some mess with these headlines, recently getting arrested and stuff like that, messing up a hotel in Beverly Hills. I mean, what the hell is going on with him? I do not want to see Devin Haney against Gervonta Davis. Devin Haney is a damn good boxer. Damn good boxer. But boy, did he get picked apart by Ryan Garcia. Yes, Ryan Garcia came in 3 pounds heavier. But he looked so much bigger, so much stronger, so much faster, so much skilled, so much more skilled. And Devin Haney, he got his ass kicked. Now, I don't think it was fair because I think that Ryan Garcia, not only the 3-pound weight advantage, he didn't meet the weight limit. Devin Haney should never have taken the fight. Shouldn't have taken $500,000 for every pound that Ryan Garcia was overweight. He shouldn't have agreed to that at all. Your belt was on the line. Your undefeated record was on the line. You were unblemished. And then in the World Tour, you get beat up by a guy that was 3 pounds heavier that, according to the reports, tested positive for performance-enhancing drug use. So Ryan Garcia has got a lot of problems. But it still doesn't take away the blemish on Devin Haney's record, and it doesn't erase what we saw with our own 2 eyes. So I don't want to see that brother against Gervonta Davis. I don't want to see that. I really, really don't. I want to see Ryan Garcia back in the ring against Gervonta Davis. I want to see Teofimo Lopez in the ring against Gervonta Davis. That's what I want to see. But the first order of business is to see him against Frank Martin. And my advice to Frank Martin is simple. Box, my brother. Move. Sting and move. Hit and move. Do not stand in front of Gervonta Davis. I know Frank Martin is telling us during these press conferences and doing his interview on the pivot with Ryan Clark and others, I want to see that Channing Crowder and Fred Taylor and those boys, mad love for them. I don't want to see, I rocked him, I shook him, I buckled his knees, I buckled his legs in sparring. Nah, that ain't the fight. That ain't the fight with the crowd and attendance and the bright lights there. That's a different animal. That's what I want to see you do. You ain't standing in front of no Gervonta Davis. Not Tank Davis. Frank Martin, take it from Stephen A. My brother, whatever you do, stick and move. Stick and move. Don't stand in front of that man. Do not stand in front of that man. I am looking out for your health. You want to get the hell away from Gervonta Davis. You don't want to have this man walking you down and stalking you where he's throwing these haymakers. Nah, not Tank. You don't see that brother doing that. You don't want to see that brother doing that. Coming up next, right here on the Stephen A. Smith Show, we'll talk some NFL football as there's another quarterback joining a $50 million a year club. Oh, I got to get into that. Guess what? It ain't Dak Prescott yet. We'll get into that and then some in a minute. Right here on the Stephen A. Smith Show over YouTube and, of course, iHeartRadio. Back with more in a minute. Welcome back to Stephen A. Smith Show right here over the digital airwaves of YouTube. Let me get into some NFL action real quick, setting the stage for this summer because we'll be talking a lot about the NFL once the NBA season is over. Yesterday, the Jacksonville Jaguars and quarterback Trevor Lawrence agreed on a 5-year, $275 million contract extension, according to ESPN's very own Adam Schefter. The $55 million average salary in Lawrence's deal ties him with the Cincinnati Bengals' Joe Burrow for the highest in the National Football League. Lawrence now becomes the sixth quarterback to have an annual salary above $50 million, joining the aforementioned Burrow, Jared Goff of the Lions, Justin Herbert of the Chargers, Lamar Jackson of the Ravens, and of course Jalen Hurts of the Philadelphia Eagles. It's a great payday for Lawrence, who's not considered by many to be the best quarterback in his division. That would be second-year quarterback C.J. Stroud of the Texans. By the way, 3-time Super Bowl champion Patrick Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs is not included in the $50 million a year club. First things first, Kansas City Chiefs, get on the phone now, call Patrick Mahomes' agent, and basically say to him, we're just waiting until the dust settles, and then we'll make sure to make you the highest paid player in the National Football League. Let's get that out the way right now. Ain't nobody deserves to be paid more than Patrick Mahomes. Let's get that out the way, okay? Come on now. We can't do that. That's number one. Number two, here's the deal with Trevor Lawrence. I believe in Trevor Lawrence. I believe in his upside. He's only been in the league 3 years. 20 and 30 as a quarterback in this league. 63.8% career completion percentage heading into this upcoming season. 1-1 in the playoffs. Overcame a 27-0 deficit against the Los Angeles Chargers a couple of years back. Had an awful rookie year. Came back. Got him to the playoffs his second year. Won a playoff game after being down 27-0 in the first half to the Chargers. Right? And then turned around and wet the bed last year. But that was because primarily after a strong start, he had a plethora of injuries. And after those injuries, they lost 5 of their last 6 games to close out the season, if I remember correctly. Here's the deal. Okay? When you look at these numbers, it's the National Football League. And the one thing that I'm not going to do is talk about what a player doesn't deserve, because with the money that the National Football League is raking in, the player's got to get some of it. So I'll be damned if I'm going to sit here and tell you that a player doesn't deserve as much money as they can possibly get. What I will say, however, is this. When we think about the quarterbacks down the pike, Jordan Love, Tua Tagovailoa, Dak Prescott, scheduled to get paid, here's what I would tell you. Dak Prescott don't deserve to get paid more than Trevor Lawrence. I don't give a damn what anybody says. Trevor Lawrence has been in this league for 3 years. Dak Prescott has been in the league for 8. Dak Prescott got 2 playoff victories in 8 years and continuously falters come postseason time. Oh, he's phenomenal from September through December, without question. But as the playoffs loom, that brother folds like a cheap tent. Now, that's not to say he will in the future. I'm saying what he's already done. Y'all could point to the 48-32 victory that the Green Bay Packers exercised against the Dallas Cowboys in last year's playoffs. I'm here to tell you, I don't want to hear that. Make it 48-16. They were getting annihilated. It was window dressing at the end, those last 16 points that the Dallas Cowboys scored. They got their ass kicked. Jordan Love and Green Bay rolled up. Aaron Jones, let's not forget him. They rolled up into Big D, Dallas, where I'm at right now, right away, and they whipped their ass. And Dak Prescott threw a pick 6 along the way. This is what he does. He threw 2 interceptions. This is what he does. When it was bleeding, he doesn't stop it. He continues to let it flow. That's what he does. So to me, when I look at Dak Prescott, I get you. You got to pay him. If you're the Dallas Cowboys, who's the quarterback that you're going to have there? I would remind you that Cooper Rush won regular season games with him too. And I'm not saying Cooper Rush should replace Dak Prescott. I'm saying if you Dak Prescott, let's say, for example, hypothetically, the Dallas Cowboys come to you and they give you $50 million. You shouldn't be sneezing at that. It's $50 million. And you ain't number one. Hell, you ain't number 10. That's a fact. When we look, let's look at the landscape of the National Football League, please. So we got Jalen Hurts. I know he had a down year last year, but I still consider him better than Dak Prescott. So we got Jalen Hurts, right? We got Jordan Love. We got Jared Goff, who's going to a Super Bowl, and they won an NFC title game against San Francisco last year, Detroit. Okay? We got that going on. We got Kirk Cousins in Atlanta, who's just as inefficient come postseason time as Dak Prescott. But still, he's right up there. We got, Brock Purdy. And then reigning NFC champion, San Francisco 49ers. We got that going on. So I'm looking at it. That's just the NFC. Let's go to the AFC. Tua. We've got, Josh Allen. Look at the AFC North. We got Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. Okay? Listen, you can look at Deshaun Watson. I believe in him. I know Russell Wilson and Justin Fields are in Pittsburgh. They got to show and prove. But at least two quarterbacks in the AFC North are better than Dak Prescott. The South, here's all you need to know. He ain't even considered the best quarterback in Texas. That's C.J. Stroud. Okay? And in the AFC West, you got Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert. So that's what it is. Come on now. Look at these quarterbacks I just gave you. I already told you Herbert. I already told you Mahomes. So that's how I'm looking at it. Dak Prescott's going to be in a position to hold the Dallas Cowboys hostage. And it's hilarious to me. Because how the hell you win 2 playoff games in 8 years, but bold enough to sit up there and say, pay me or else? You the Dallas Cowboys? You got a lot of thinking to do. Seriously, you did nothing this offseason. And I understand that Dak Prescott is an all-world quarterback during the regular season. I'm only talking about the postseason. Now, if the postseason don't matter to you that much, and it's all about being interested enough to get to the postseason, okay, then pay Dak Prescott. But if postseason performances matter, one would argue you should hold that against them. You should hold it against them. You got to pay Jordan Love, though, if you're Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers is going, I can't believe I didn't mention Aaron Rodgers with the New York Jets. Aaron Rodgers with the New York Jets. So, I mean, everywhere you turn. 3 quarterbacks in the AFC East, at least 2 in the AFC North, at least 1 in the AFC South, and at least 2 in the AFC West. That's about 7 quarterbacks, y'all. And I gave you the names in the NFC, none of whom are Dak Prescott. What's the problem? So it's going to be real interesting to see what happens this year. It's going to be real interesting to see if the Dallas Cowboys are going to open up the vault and pay Dak Prescott at the expense of a C.D. Lamb and a Micah Parsons. Because you know what I believe. I believe the number one priority to be paid is Micah Parsons. Because you know what that brother's going to bring on the defensive side of the ball. But most importantly, more so than anything else, he's a prohibitive face of the franchise. When you think about Micah Parsons, you see Dallas Cowboys. That's how I view all of this. That's it for this edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show. I got to get on out of here tonight. Y'all enjoy your weekend. I got to get set for Game 4 of the NBA Finals. Until next time, right? Peace and love, everybody. Happy Father's Day. I'll see you next week. Take care.